There is this collective modern anxiety that I think defines our generation more than like almost anything else.
Oh, absolutely.
It is that very specific sinking feeling you get when you look at the top corner of your screen and you see a tiny red battery icon showing 1%.
Right. The walls just immediately start closing in on you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like this manufactured survival panic. I mean, it is entirely disproportionate to the actual danger, yet biologically, it's pretty much indistinguishable from being chased by a predator.
Right. It's a pure survival instinct, but it's directed at a piece of glass and metal.
Yeah.
And it sets off this immediate, desperate, you are suddenly scanning the room for an outlet. You're like interrupting conversations to ask totally random strangers for a charger.
You lose all social grace.
You really do. Everything else in your day, your priorities, your meetings, even your own thoughts, they just stop mattering until you can plug in and get that external source of power flowing back into the device.
You become completely dependent on the plug.
Exactly. And as I was pouring through the sources for our deep dive today, it hit me that we do not just do this with our phones.
Oh, no. We do it with everything.
Right. But especially our minds. I mean, we treat our baseline joy, our contentment, exactly the same way. We wander around, essentially running on 1%, just desperately looking for an external outlet to plug into.
Like a notification on our screen or, a piece of chocolate or a new purchase.
Yes. Just to feel fully charged for a few fleeting minutes.
But the tragedy of that cycle, and this is what we're really getting into today, is that the moment you unplug from that external source, the battery starts draining immediately all over again.
It's exhausting.
It is. You are trapped in a state of being held psychologically hostage by your environment.
Which is why today you and I are exploring an absolute treasure of a text that offers a literal way out of that hostage situation.
I am so excited for this one.
Me too. We are looking at a fascinating excerpt from a philosophical guide focusing on these incredibly ancient verses, specifically Shlokas 6.20 and 6.21.
Which are just profound.
They really are. And our mission today is to decode the profound difference between the fragile, fleeting pleasure our modern society constantly pushes on us and the unshakable, infinite joy that's actually described in these verses.
Right. So we're going to look at how our modern dopamine-driven lives are actually actively holding us back.
Yeah.
And we'll explore how a concept called atindriyam, which is a joy beyond the physical senses, is the key to breaking free from all of that.
Okay, let's unpack this, because right out of the gate, the text promises a roadmap to a state where we no longer need to acquire anything new to feel completely whole.
It's a bold claim.
It is a massive claim, and the excerpt begins with an analogy pulling from a previous concept to set the stage for today's focus. It says, yesterday, we spoke of the mind as a flame in a windless place.
Such a great visual.
I want to really visualize this because, a flame is usually the definition of chaos. Like, if you picture a candle sitting on a table, it is constantly dancing. It sputters, it leans left and right, just struggling against every tiny draft in the room.
Yeah, somebody walks by and it flickers violently.
Exactly. The air conditioning kicks on,
Right.
and it almost goes out entirely.
And that flickering flame is the perfect diagnostic image of our default state of consciousness.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, our attention is entirely at the mercy of the wind of our environment. An email arrives, a car honks outside, or even just a random anxious thought about a deadline tomorrow pops into your head.
And your mental flame violently shifts direction.
Exactly. The energy is erratic. You are constantly burning fuel, just trying to stay lit in the middle of a literal storm.
But the text is asking us to imagine that flame in a windless place.
Right.
If you picture a candle burning in a completely sealed, draft-free room, the physics of the fire seem to change. It does not even look like fire anymore.
No, it looks completely different.
It looks like a solid, glowing piece of glass. It is perfectly vertical, perfectly still, radiating light evenly in every single direction. It is steady, and it is entirely undisturbed by the outside world.
And that transition from the flickering flame to the solid flame, that brings us to the core question the text poses.
Right.
What happens when the mind achieves that state of total windless stillness?
The text calls this the destination of the disciplined mind.
Yes, and crucially, it describes this destination not as a void or, a sensory deprivation chamber of emptiness.
Because that's what we usually think, right? Just a blank slate.
Exactly, but instead it describes it as a state of profound, unshakable joy.
Which brings us to the mechanics of how we actually build that windless room.
Let's get into it.
The text analyzes Shloka 6.20.
Right, so the Sanskrit phrasing provided is Yatra Paramachit Tanayudha Yoga Sevaya.
Okay.
And the English translation breaks this down as requiring a mind restrained by the practice of yoga to attain quietude. Yes, and further, it says that by seeing the self by the pure mind, one is completely satisfied in his own self.
I have to stop at that word restrained, though.
I had a feeling you would.
I mean, to a modern listener, that immediately triggers a defensive response. Restrained sounds like a straitjacket.
It sounds restrictive.
Completely. We live in a culture that worships limitless expression. We are taught that true freedom means letting your mind wander wherever it wants, following every impulse, scrolling endlessly down whatever rabbit hole the algorithm happens to serve up.
Oh, totally.
So how does this ancient text justify framing restriction as the very mechanism that leads to being completely satisfied?
Well, it is a fundamental clash of definitions. We view restraint as a loss of liberty in the modern world.
Right.
But in the context of this text, think back to the flame. If you leave all the windows open during a hurricane in the name of freedom, your flame is going to be extinguished.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The restraint being talked about here, this practice of deep mental discipline, is simply the act of closing the windows.
That reframes it completely.
It is the conscious decision to stop letting every passing breeze of external stimuli dictate your internal state.
Right.
So, closing the windows is a restriction of the wind, yes, but it is a restriction that allows the flame to burn at its absolute brightest and most stable.
So the restraint is not a cage at all. It is a protective boundary.
Exactly.
It is recognizing that chasing every single passing thought isn't freedom at all. It is actually a form of slavery to your environment.
Spot on.
Oh.
And the verse follows that thought by explaining the result of this protective quietude. It speaks of seeing the self by the pure mind.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, it implies that the mind, in its default flickering state, is inherently cloudy.
Yeah.
It acts as a distorted lens.
Okay, I'm with you.
Think about it like looking at your reflection in a lake. If a storm is raging, the image is shattered. The waves warp the reflection into a jagged, chaotic mess.
Right.
And if you believe that reflection is accurate, you will walk away thinking you are a jagged, chaotic mess.
You identify with the distortion. You think your anxiety, your erratic thoughts, your shifting desires, you think that is who you fundamentally are.
But when the wind stops, when the mind is restrained into quietude, like we just talked about, the surface of the water becomes like glass.
It settles.
Yes, it becomes a pure mirror. And only in that stillness can you actually see your true nature without the distortion of passing anxieties and external chaos.
So it's about clarity.
Completely. The verse concludes that upon seeing this true self in the pure mirror of the quiet mind, you realize that beneath all the noise, you are inherently whole.
The progression there is just stunning. Block the wind, the flame steadies, calm the water, the reflection clears.
Yeah,
And the clear reflection reveals that you do not need to add a single thing to the image to make it perfect.
that's right there.
But the text does not let us rest there. Right. The next verse, Shloka 6.21, takes this idea of inner satisfaction and pushes it into territory that completely shatters our modern biological understanding of happiness.
It really forces us to confront the limitations of our own nervous system.
Yeah.
The text introduces Shloka 6.21. Sukham atyantika yatad buddhigraya atindriyam.
And the translation.
The translation provided is a state of boundless, infinite bliss that can be grasped by the pure intellect. But, and this is a pivot, transcends the physical senses.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the text singles out the word atindriyam.
Yes.
It highlights this as the radical core of the philosophy. Atindriyam literally translates to that which is beyond the senses.
Beyond what we can feel physically.
Right, and logically, my brain hits a wall here.
It's hard to grasp.
It is. If a joy completely transcends the physical senses, how do we feel it? I mean, every single pleasure we experience, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of a great meal, the rush of hearing your favorite song, it all requires physical senses.
It requires a biological mechanism.
Exactly. It requires a nervous system to intercept a stimulus, convert it into an electrical signal, and shoot it up your spinal cord to your brain. If atindriyam bypasses that entirely, what on earth is it?
That is the million-dollar question.
Let's try an analogy. Imagine trying to explain the concept of Wi-Fi to someone from a century ago whose entire understanding of communication relies on physical copper cables.
Oh, I like this.
Right. If you tell them, hey, there's a massive network of infinite information floating through the air in this room right now, they would demand proof.
They'd want to see the wires.
They would look for a wire, they would try to touch the data, and when they couldn't physically feel the signal, they would conclude it doesn't exist.
Because it's outside their paradigm.
Exactly. But the signal is there. It is immensely powerful. You just cannot access it with your physical hands. You need a fundamentally different kind of receiver to tap into it.
The copper cables are a perfect representation of our physical senses. Our eyes, our ears, our skin.
Right.
They are highly specialized tools for transmitting a very limited, localized type of data about our immediate physical environment.
The Wi-Fi.
But this boundless, infinite bliss the verse describes is the Wi-Fi signal. It exists entirely independently of the copper cables. And the verse actually names the receiver required to pick up this signal. It says this bliss can be grasped by the pure intellect. The Sanskrit term provided is buddhi graham.
So we really need to clarify pure intellect here, because in Western culture, intellect usually just means IQ.
Right, it means book smarts.
Exactly. It means how fast you can solve a math problem or how much trivia you can memorize for Jeopardy.
But in this framework, buddhi is not computational intelligence. It is the faculty of profound realization.
Okay, realization.
Yes, it is deep, unclouded discernment. The text is revealing that this ultimate joy is not a physical sensation coursing through your veins.
Not a dopamine hit.
No, it is not an adrenaline rush. It is a fundamental, unshakable knowing of absolute truth.
Knowing.
Right. It is a realization of your own completeness that is so deeply rooted. It completely overrides whatever temporary data the physical senses happen to be reporting at the moment.
A joy that is a realization, not a sensation. It is a total paradigm shift.
Completely.
Because if I realize with absolute clarity that I am entirely safe and whole, the temporary physical sensation of being, say, cold or tired loses its psychological grip on me.
The copper cable is still sending the cold signal, but you are tuned into the Wi-Fi.
Yes. And this explains the final promise of the Versipine. Established thus, one never departs from the absolute truth.
That permanence is key.
Once you tune the receiver to this frequency, the connection is permanent, which is the exact opposite of how sensory pleasure works.
Right.
If you eat a great meal, the physical sensation of fullness departs the moment your digestive system processes the food. The copper cable eventually stops transmitting the signal.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this stark contrast between the permanence of atindrium and the evaporating nature of sensory pleasure is exactly how the source text diagnoses our modern psychological crisis.
It really hones in on the present day.
It does. The guide takes this ancient framework and applies it directly to your daily life.
It launches a pretty brutal critique, actually.
Very brutal.
The text asserts that our era deeply confuses pleasure with happiness. We use those words as synonyms, but the text insists that confusing the two is the engine of our collective misery.
Pleasure is sensory. It is the copper cable.
Right.
Happiness, in the true sense of atendriam, is beyond the senses. But modern society does not just confuse them. It actively trains us to prioritize the former at the expense of the latter.
We are conditioned.
Exactly. The text explicitly states that society trains us to seek joy almost exclusively through physical senses and external inputs. We are conditioned to be dependent on the plug.
The text provides 4 highly specific examples of this training. We need to dissect these because they represent the exact treadmill most of us are running on today.
Let's do it.
The first example of an external input we are trained to chase is the taste of rich food.
Which is everywhere.
Right, and this goes way beyond just eating to survive. We use food as an emotional regulator.
It is the most accessible biological hack available to us.
Literally.
When you experience stress, your body releases cortisol. It is an uncomfortable, agitated state.
Scary.
Instead of sitting with that discomfort and allowing the mental dirt to settle, society teaches us to immediately counteract it with a massive influx of external sensory pleasure.
So you grab the donuts.
You consume sugar or rich fats, your taste buds fire, and your brain releases a surge of feel-good chemicals. You successfully hijack your nervous system to momentarily drown out the anxiety.
But the text zeroes in on the fatal flaw here. It says, because these joys are external, they are inherently fragile.
Right.
And then it states the inevitable outcome. When the food is gone, the joy evaporates.
The hack wears off.
You finish the meal, the biological hack wears off, and not only is the pleasure gone, but the underlying stress or emptiness you were trying to escape is still sitting right there, completely unaddressed.
You didn't fix anything.
You just kick the can down the road.
Which brings us to the second example, a mechanism that operates on an even faster, more relentless cycle.
Oh boy.
The dopamine hit of a new notification.
This is the battery panic in its purest form.
Totally.
Our devices are engineered by behavioral psychologists to exploit our need for social connection. You post a photo, you send a message, and then you enter a state of suspended animation, waiting for the red bubble to appear.
And when it does, it is a microdose of validation.
The text intentionally uses the phrase, dopamine hit.
And that's an important distinction because dopamine is often misunderstood as the pleasure chemical.
Right, people think it's the reward.
But it's actually the molecule of anticipation and motivation. It spikes when you hear the ping, driving you to look at the screen, but the reward itself is notoriously hollow and short-lived.
The text warns, when the screen goes dark, the joy evaporates.
It vanishes instantly.
You check the notification, you see the like, and within seconds, the chemical wave recedes. You are left staring at your own reflection in the black glass of the phone, experiencing the exact same baseline level of contentment you had before the ping.
Nothing actually changed.
Nope. The third example is one our entire global economy relies on: the thrill of a purchase.
Retail therapy.
Exactly. The psychology of acquiring things is fascinating because the peak of the joy almost always happens before you actually own the object.
Oh, the hunt is everything.
It is the hunt. It is the friction of browsing, placing it in the cart, tracking the shipping. You are telling yourself a story that this new object will finally bridge the gap between who you are and who you want to be.
It is the illusion of additive completeness.
Yes.
But what happens the moment you actually unbox it?
The friction is gone.
The story ends. The object transitions from being a symbol of future happiness to just another physical item taking up space in your house.
It just becomes clutter.
The thrill evaporates, exposing the fragility of relying on retail for emotional stability.
And the fourth example is perhaps the most dangerous because it is universally applauded.
Right. Society loves this one.
The validation of a promotion. We spend decades grinding in our careers, convinced that if we secure the title, the corner office, or the public praise, we will finally arrive at lasting happiness.
The danger of external validation is that you are outsourcing your internal climate to the whims of other people.
That's a dangerous game.
Extremely. And human opinions are incredibly volatile. You might receive the promotion and feel a massive surge of pride.
But the text delivers the counterweight.
When someone criticizes you, the joy evaporates.
If your foundation for contentment is built on being praised, a single critical email from a boss can completely demolish your emotional state for an entire week.
You have handed the remote control to your nervous system over to your coworkers.
It's terrifying when you put it like that. After laying out these four examples, the text delivers what might be the most chilling phrase in the entire deep dive.
It really hits hard.
It does. After the food is gone, after the screen goes dark, after the novelty of the purchase fades, and after the criticism hits, the text says it leaves a void that demands to be filled again.
The void is not passive.
No.
It is actively demanding.
Right.
Because you have systematically trained your brain to believe that the only solution to internal discomfort is external consumption. The moment the stimulus fades, the brain panics.
It demands another hit.
Another notification, another purchase. It is the definition of a closed addiction loop.
It is an endless treadmill. You are sprinting, exhausting yourself, constantly reaching for the next external plug, but you never move an inch closer to actual sustainable happiness.
No, you stay exactly where you are.
And the text reaches a brutal, inevitable conclusion for anyone living this way. You become a hostage to external circumstances.
The word hostage implies a total loss of agency.
Right.
A hostage's well-being is entirely dictated by the demands of their captor. If your joy requires the world to behave exactly the way you want it to, your phone to ring, your food to be perfect, your colleagues to praise you, then you are a hostage to a chaotic, fundamentally unpredictable universe.
So how do we negotiate our release?
That is the big question.
Because if we are all currently hostages running on this treadmill, how do the ancient verses Shlokas 620 and 621 actually offer a way off?
Well, the text synthesizes the ancient wisdom with the modern diagnosis to reveal its ultimate promise.
Nope.
The promise of atendrium, the joy beyond the physical senses, is the promise of absolute independence.
independent.
Right. If you can cultivate a boundless bliss that does not rely on a single external input, you are no longer a hostage. The captor loses all leverage.
So what does this all mean for how we actually live?
It's a huge shift.
The text describes a radical shift in how we understand acquisition. It says, when the mind is quieted, you discover that you do not need to acquire anything new to feel whole. You simply realize the completeness that is already within you.
It's a beautiful thought.
I have to push back here, though. Hard.
I figured. Let's hear it.
This sounds beautiful in a monastery, but we live in reality.
Right.
If I stop desiring things, if I just sit around realizing my completeness, I will get fired. I will lose my house. I will literally starve.
That's the common fear.
But our entire economic structure requires me to desire things, to strive, to want the promotion so I can pay my mortgage. How does this ancient text expect us to survive in a modern capitalist society if we completely abandon the desire to acquire?
That is the exact friction point where most people abandon this philosophy entirely.
Right, because it feels incompatible.
But it is a fundamental misunderstanding of what the text is actually asking.
Yeah.
The text is not advocating for passive nihilism.
Okay.
It does not say stop taking action. It says stop relying on the action to make you whole.
Ah.
You can still go to work. You can still negotiate a contract. You can still buy a house.
So I don't have to sell all my possessions.
No, not at all. But the internal dependency shifts. You are no longer pursuing the promotion because you believe you are a worthless, incomplete person without it.
Right.
You're pursuing it simply as a function of navigating the world.
Yeah.
It is the difference between building a statue by adding clay to an empty armature versus carving a statue by chipping away excess stone.
Okay, so society teaches us we are the empty armature.
Yes.
We have to desperately pack on clay money, status, and relationships to finally resemble a complete human being.
Exactly. But the text says, you are the solid block of marble, and the masterpiece is already inside.
Wow.
The boundless bliss is your default state. You do not need to add anything new to it. You just need to quiet the mind to see it.
The text drives this home by stating that upon realizing this inner completeness, you become independent of the world's chaos.
And what's fascinating here is the precise phrasing.
What do you mean?
It does not say the chaos magically disappears. The emails will still pile up. The economy will still fluctuate. Traffic will still be a nightmare.
The storm is still outside.
The external storm continues to rage. But because you have cultivated that windless place inside your mind, your dependency on the chaos changes.
Right.
You can walk through a chaotic world, interacting with it, solving problems, without becoming chaotic yourself.
You can navigate the storm without letting the storm inside the windless room.
Perfectly said.
Okay, logically, I am entirely on board. The theory is airtight. But as a practical reality, sitting here with a smartphone in my pocket, conditioned by decades of sensory dependency, how do I actually execute this?
It's the ultimate challenge.
I cannot just snap my fingers and instantly access a Tindriam.
The brilliance of the source material is that it doesn't leave us stranded in abstract philosophy.
Thank goodness.
It provides a highly specific three-step operational guide designed precisely for negotiating today's environment. It is a practical toolkit for stepping off the treadmill.
Let's walk through this guide.
Sure.
Step 1 is observe your dependencies. The text asks us to simply notice the reflex. Notice how often we reach for an external object to manipulate our internal state.
Just awareness.
Right. It asks, do you instinctively grab your phone the moment you feel bored? Do you seek a sugary treat the moment you feel stressed?
Which we all do.
The phone boredom reflex is so deeply ingrained in me, it bypasses conscious thought entirely.
Well, same here.
If I am waiting for an elevator and it takes more than 4 seconds to arrive, my hand is automatically in my pocket unlocking my screen. I am terrified of 4 seconds of empty time.
It is a micro-intolerance to stillness.
Yes.
We have lost the capacity to simply exist with our own consciousness. Step 1 is not about judging yourself, though.
Okay, that's a relief.
It is not about throwing your phone away into a river. It is purely about observation. You have to map the hostage situation before you can plan the escape.
Makes sense.
You have to isolate that exact millisecond where the internal discomfort flares up and watch how your mind instantly screams for a sensory pacifier.
Once you map the reflex, the text moves to step 2, the 5-minute stillness rule.
This is where the work happens.
The instruction is deceptively simple. Pause before escaping into a distraction. Sit perfectly still for 5 minutes. Do not try to do anything. Just breathe.
Just breathe.
And then it introduces this incredible analogy. Let the mind settle like dirt falling to the bottom of a glass of water.
I love this analogy so much.
I want to spend some time on this water analogy because it perfectly captures the physical mechanics of anxiety.
Absolutely.
When we are frantic, when we are jumping from app to app, trying to fix our internal discomfort with external noise, we are essentially shaking a glass of muddy water.
Vigorously shaking it.
The dirt, our chaotic thoughts, our unfulfilled desires, our fears mixes violently into the water. The glass becomes completely opaque. You cannot see anything through it.
That opaque water is the physical manifestation of the impure, unrestrained mind from Shloka 620.
Right?
The reflection is entirely distorted.
And our modern instinct, when we see that murky water, is to panic and try to intervene.
We want to fix it immediately.
We think, I need to reach into the glass and pull the dirt out. I need to buy a filter. I need to pour this water out and find a different glass.
We apply action.
Yes, we apply action, energy, and more chaos to try and fix the chaos.
But the text's instruction is completely counterintuitive.
Very.
It demands radical passivity. Do not try to do anything.
Because any action you take to forcibly remove the dirt requires moving the glass, which only stirs the dirt back up.
Exactly. The only physical way to clear the water is to set the glass down on a stable surface, take your hands completely off it, and let gravity take over.
And we have to acknowledge how excruciating those 5 minutes actually are.
Oh, they are agonizing.
When you first set the glass down, your brain will scream at you. You will feel a physical urge to itch, to move your leg, to check your email just one more time.
The withdrawal is real.
The heavy gravel of your immediate anxieties might drop to the bottom quickly, but the fine silt of deep-seated existential worry takes agonizing minutes to clear.
Right, because stillness does not make the dirt vanish.
The thoughts and fears still exist in the glass.
But by refusing to shake it, the dirt inevitably settles to the bottom, leaving the water at the top crystal clear.
You outlast the dirt through pure stillness. You survive the 5 minutes. The water is clear.
And that brings us to the final step.
Step 3, locate the quiet joy. The text says, in that stillness, try to touch a sense of contentment entirely unrelated to what you own, what you've achieved, or who is praising you. Realize that at your core, you are already enough.
This raises an important question.
What's that?
How jarring is it to strip away every single external identifier we use to define our value?
It's a terrifying thought.
Right. Who are you when you are not a manager, a spouse, a homeowner, or a consumer? If you remove every label, every achievement, and every possession, society tells us there should be nothing left but a terrifying void.
It feels like stepping off a cliff.
It really does.
I mean, if I am not my resume, who am I?
But the profound promise of the text, the promise of Atindriyam, is that when you look into that clear water, you do not find a void.
You don't?
No. You find an underlying architecture of joy.
Wow.
You tap into a frequency of existence that feels complete simply because it exists. You realize that the sheer act of being aware, stripped of all external demands, is inherently boundlessly joyful.
You discover that you have always been enough.
Exactly. Always.
Which brings us to the ultimate conclusion of this deep dive, leading to a total redefinition of a concept we build entire civilizations around.
Freedom.
The guide leaves us with this synthesizing thought. True freedom is not the ability to fulfill every desire. It is the realization that you are perfectly whole without them.
That is so powerful.
True freedom is not the ability to fulfill every desire. It is the realization that you are perfectly whole without them. We are culturally indoctrinated to believe the exact opposite.
Oh, 100%.
We believe freedom is infinite optionality. We think ultimate freedom means having enough money and power to instantly satisfy every single whim that crosses our mind.
That is the illusion of a hostage who has fallen in love with the treadmill.
That's a great way to put it.
We think if we just get fast enough at running, if we get efficient enough at acquiring the external plugs, we will eventually win the game.
But we never do.
Because fulfilling a desire never eliminates the mechanism of desire. It merely resets the trap for a new one.
The void always returns.
Always. True freedom is recognizing you never had to run on the treadmill in the first place.
It is intensely liberating to realize the ultimate joy isn't a destination you have to travel to.
No.
It isn't locked behind a paywall or waiting at the end of a 10-year career plan. It is a quiet space already inside you, right now, just waiting for you to stop shaking the glass.
It's all right there.
As we wrap up our analysis of these sources, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on this tension between ancient stillness and modern society.
I'm curious where you're going with this.
If our entire global economy and social structure are meticulously designed to train us to endlessly chase external desires, what actually happens when you master this stillness?
Oh, that's a dangerous question.
Right. If you truly realize, deep in your neurobiology, that you are perfectly whole without acquiring anything new, do you become fundamentally incompatible with the modern world?
It's a paradox.
If you stop needing the dopamine hit, the purchase, the validation from the corporate hierarchy, do you become a glitch in the matrix?
I mean, you kind of do.
Or does possessing that winless place inside your mind, that unshakable independence from the chaos, make you the only person who can actually navigate the modern world with total, devastating clarity?
That is a phenomenal thing to think about.
The next time you look at your screen and you see that red battery icon flash at 1% and you feel that familiar, desperate panic rising in your chest, take a breath.
Just pause.
Remember that you are not a machine. You are not dependent on an external wire to feel complete. You have everything you need, perfectly whole, already inside.
Let the dirt settle.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Put the glass down today. We'll see you next time.